my channel. My name is Jackie Lindell. I am the owner and founder of Fit Like a Girl Personal Training here in Edmonton, Alberta. So this week I am going to be doing a question and answers video. I put a call out into my social media as well as all my clients and my email list to give me your biggest questions in regards to fitness, health, weight loss, nutrition, whatever, and that I would answer them in the video. So I did one of these videos a few weeks ago and it went over really well, and actually since then I've gotten some great feedback on it. So I thought that I would make a kind of a mini series where I could answer a bunch of your guys' questions and curate more content to help you in your journey wherever you are with whatever your goals are. So I have my questions. I wrote them out so that I can refer to them. Thank you for everybody who sent me questions in. I'm excited to help answer them and to offer some more clarity on what you can do for your goals. So I'm gonna get right into it. Question number one is actually from one of my clients that she asked me. So I answered it for her privately, but as well as I'm going to answer it on here because I feel like a lot of people might feel the same way. So her question to me was, why do you want me to eat so much protein? Or I guess you could just ask for weight loss or muscle gains, why do you have to eat so much protein? So the reasons, there's a few different reasons, but I'll just go over a couple of main points. Number one, protein is very satiating or satisfying. So when you add protein to a meal or a snack, you will feel more full after that meal is done. And so you're not going to be reaching into the cupboard every, 30 minutes after you just had dinner because you're hungry again. So eating protein in your meal will help keep you more full. Protein also takes longer to digest, which keeps you full longer. So that is a reason why adding protein can be helpful for weight loss, because then you're going to be adding more protein in, which helps you keep full longer to help keep you in a calorie deficit a little bit easier. So that is the reason why I want you to generally have more protein in your diet. A good range for weight loss, or even if you just want to focus on muscle gains, is anywhere from 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So there's a range. If you struggle with eating protein and you find that you can barely even get 50 or 100 grams in a day, go to the lower end of that range and then you can work your way up. And I always say just aim for it. Say, for example, you have a hard time getting 120 grams in a day, shoot for 100, and then eventually you can work your way up to that 120 grams or whatever that number is. So that's one reason. The other reason is, I already kind of mentioned it, is for gaining muscle mass. So when you are trying to lose weight and you are strength training, protein helps to build and maintain muscle mass so that having more muscle mass is good for you, because not only does it help you move better, it helps keep your joints and your body healthy, but also the more muscle mass you have, actually, the more calories your body will burn just to keep itself going. So think of somebody like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I think I talked about him in one of my last videos. He's a gigantic man and he is just solid muscle. And the amount of calories that man has to eat in a day just to keep his body going is a lot. Now, it's a bit of an extreme example using him, but what I'm trying to say is that the more muscle mass that your body has, the more calories that you're going to burn throughout the day, which can help increase your metabolism so that you're not having to be stuck eating a low amount of calories all the time. It'll actually help so your body burns more calories and you can eat more calories. Obviously, that doesn't happen overnight. That's quite a process, but protein intake helps to gain that muscle as well as maintain that muscle mass. So when you are also trying to lose weight, you need to be in a calorie deficit so your body goes to your extra stored energy for making up that energy deficit. Now, you want your body, obviously, if you're trying to lose weight, to go for body fat, to use up that extra body fat to get rid of it. Now, sometimes if you're not consuming enough protein and you're not strength training, your body might actually go for not only your body fat, but also muscle. And that's kind of where people get that, I guess they call it the skinny fat look, where you still have body fat because you don't have a ton of muscle mass. So when you're strength training and eating sufficient protein, you're building up that muscle mass. And then if you're in a calorie deficit, it will also force your body to focus more on using the stored energy in the form of body fat versus your muscles to make up for that energy deficit. So I hope that offers a little bit of clarification as to why protein intake is important. And you're not alone if you struggle with protein intake. I actually just recently wrote a blog on some tips on how to consume more protein if you're struggling with protein intake. So I will link that in the description if you want to go and check it out. There's some good tips in there on how you can increase your protein intake if you are struggling. So question number 2 is actually the second part to question number 1. And the question was, can I actually lose weight while sticking to the 80-20 rule? So first things first, if you haven't heard of the 80-20 rule, it is basically focusing on, it's a way of incorporating balance. So you're focusing on 80% of the time, if you're looking for weight loss or even just health or whatever, hitting your calorie intake, focusing on 80% of the time you're getting your nutrition from quality, nutrient-dense foods, your whole foods, your lean proteins, your leafy greens, your veggies, your healthy carbohydrates, all those types of things, 80% of the time. Then 20% of the time, you can enjoy the maybe less nutritious, more fun foods that you enjoy, like your cake and your donuts and those types of things, or alcohol can be included in there. So that's the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, you're on track with your nutrition. You're getting the majority of your foods from whole, nutritious, nutrient-dense, generally lower calorie foods. And then 20% of the time, you can live a little, enjoy, and incorporate some of the things that you love. Now, yes, you can absolutely lose weight on the 80-20 rule. I 100% recommend trying to aim for the 80-20 split because A, you will feel like your weight loss or your weight loss journey, whatever, is more attainable, easier to stick to, and as well as helps to change your relationship with food, where there's no such thing as good and bad foods. You can incorporate those other foods into your life. You don't have to say no to them all the time, but you can have them sometimes. The key with the 80-20 rule is actually making it 80-20. So here's a downfall of it, is especially if you struggle with staying on track and those types of things, a lot of people miscalculate or overestimate how well they're actually eating. And they think, oh, I'm eating well 80% of the time, when maybe it's only really 50% of the time. So this is where you have to be really honest with yourself, and this is where tracking can help. I know there's a bit of a stigma when it comes to tracking your calories and things like that, but honestly, if you are struggling with this and you don't know where you're going wrong with your nutrition and you're not getting the results that you want, tracking your foods, even just writing it down on a piece of paper or taking photos of everything that you eat in a day, can give you a really good picture as to how you're actually eating. Are you actually eating 80-20? Are you more like 50-50 or 60-40? And this way you can really know where your progress is or isn't coming from. So you could also think of it this way. When you're doing 80-20 rule, a lot of people tend to think, okay, I'll just be really good Monday to Friday, and then that means 80-20 rule, I can just take a breather on the weekend and just eat whatever I want and not track. The downfall with that is what I call the weekend warrior, is then you go overboard on the weekend because you restricted so much Monday to Friday that when, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday come along, you got booze, you got McDonald's, you got pizza and wings and all these things that lots of times you end up eating way more calories than you intend on because you're not thinking about, you're not tracking, you're just consuming. And it can actually throw you out of your calorie deficit that you work so hard Monday to Friday on. So what I would suggest, if you find that's happening, is number 1, track at least one weekend day. So you have to keep yourself a little bit more honest with yourself that way. And number 2, instead of waiting until the weekend to have fun and eat all the fun foods and whatever, try to incorporate some of that stuff more during the week. Now, what I mean by that is not obviously letting yourself go crazy during the week, but being able to incorporate these types of treats and things like that. And if you're tracking, try to fit them into your calories for the day. So for example, if you have pizza one night during the week on a Wednesday, you can have a couple slices of pizza as well as maybe a salad with dinner. Or, Tuesday night, you can go out for ice cream if you want and have a small ice cream. Incorporating these types of things throughout the week can eliminate the weekend warrior mentality on the weekend, as well as allow you to have a little bit of fun and incorporate these types of foods and things that you like without feeling over restricted. So yes, losing weight with the 80-20 rule is possible, but you need to be honest with yourself what 80-20 actually is. So keep that in mind when you are aiming for that 80-20 rule. Generally, you need to be a little bit more diligent than you actually think you're being. Question number 3 is, I'm just going to read it because it's a little bit longer. How to keep your feet flat during a squat and not have your back go forward during a squat, especially if you have long legs. So, couple of things here. Number 1, we'll address the feet issue. So when you're doing a squat, whether it's a goblet squat where you're holding the weight here, a body weight squat, or a barbell squat, either a back barbell squat or a front barbell squat, you want to keep your weight or the pressure in your foot in the heel to mid part of your foot, especially on the outer edges, so that your ankles aren't caving in like this, causing your knees to also cave in. Now, the best way to do it is just honestly practice. So keeping the heels on the ground and making sure that as you go to do the squat, you are hinging your hips back and down slightly. And what I like to do is when I have clients that tend to put pressure in their toes as they go to do a squat, is to just slightly lift your toes up off the ground as you go down in the squat. So as you go down, you're going to slightly lift up the toes. That will help shift the weight into the heel and midfoot, as well as send your weight backwards. Now, a lot of people, when they're doing a squat, this tends to happen because they feel unbalanced. So they tend to lean forward to compensate for the squat feeling like they're gonna fall over. The best way to teach yourself out of this is to do a box squat or squats off of a bench. So even if you're using a barbell or whatever, you put a bench behind you. So when you go down, you aim to touch the bench with your butt. This will help learning to keep the pressure in the heels of the feet, and B, being able to hinge your hips back as you go down into your squat. Also really helps if you struggle with proper depth of your squat. So you go down, you squat to the bench, touch, push through the floor. And when you push through the floor to go stand up, you want to engage your quad muscles. As you go to stand up, you want to feel that flex in your quad muscles, and B, feel the pressure in the heel of your foot as you ascend back up. So it is a matter of working on it, training and practice so that your body knows what to do. Generally, this can also happen if you are lifting too heavy and if you're not comfortable with that weight. So then your body's like, oh shit. So you go forward a little bit. So take some weight off, practice. Use a box squat until you feel confident. Then you can take the box away. Now, not having your back go totally forward. Again, this can be sometimes a bit of a balance issue as well as a hip mobility thing. So if you're finding that it's balance, then try again with the box squat, so then you can learn to engage your core muscles. So sometimes this can also be due to lacking engagement in your core as you do squat, and you tend to go forward a little bit too much. So learning to breathe into your belly and engage your ab muscles. Now, when I say engage your ab muscles, I don't mean suck it in. I mean brace. So that feeling when you cough or you laugh and your belly tenses up, or you go to take a dump and your stomach muscles tense up, think about that as you're doing your squat, except for don't poop. So especially if you're lifting a heavy weight, you want to breathe into your belly, brace, then you can complete your squat. So some tips, especially if you're lifting heavier, is as you ascend down into your squat, you breathe into your belly, and then you can hold your breath for just a 1 count as you start to ascend back up. So inhale into your belly as you go down. Once you've reached the lowest part of your depth, you want to pause, hold your breath as you start to ascend back up. And then when you're about halfway up, then you can let your breath out. I don't suggest doing that all the time, but if you're lifting really heavy weights, that can really help to brace that core so that you don't go down. This can also happen again with hip mobility issues. So just focusing, another way to do is to lighten the load and really just focus on that depth, doing box squats to keep your back upright while you're teaching yourself how to brace your core. So those are some tips. I would, to really assess what the actual issue is, whether it's like a core stabilization issue or just a mobility issue, I'd have to see it in person, but those are just some generalized tips that you can try to focus on while you are kind of figuring out what the main issue is. Okay, question number 4 is, how long does it take a woman, I'm just reading this verbatim what they sent me, how long does it take a woman to develop abs and quads? They mentioned that their quad muscles haven't really had any growth in the past couple of years. Sex and gender doesn't matter when it comes to muscle gains and things like that. Yes, generally men will gain muscle faster than women just due to a hormone thing, but the rules are essentially the same. So couple of things, again, not really knowing your situation and what you're doing for training and things like that. Sometimes changing up your training split. So if you have been doing the same workout all the time for a long time, change up your workouts, try different things. So if you are doing goblet squats all the time, maybe try more one-legged exercises like a split squat or lunges, those types of things. I'm just talking about leg muscle growth here, as well as making sure that you are lifting heavy enough with proper form. A lot of people don't really think about this when it comes to muscle gains, but also learning how to engage your muscles properly. This was something that was really emphasized for me with my knee surgeries, because after my ACL surgeries, I lost like all muscles in my leg. And it's just due to atrophy because you're not moving after surgery, and the damage and the trauma to the nerves in your leg, your muscles aren't firing. So part of recovery is teaching those muscles how to fire when your brain tells it to. Now, at first, I guess I'm gonna go into a bit of a story. At first, when I first had my ACL surgery and I was working on, I would go to physiotherapy and he would say, okay, I want you to flex your quad muscles. I might as well have been trying to levitate my TV from across the room because that mind to muscle connection was gone. However, though, over time, learning how to fire those muscles helps. So one thing that was worked really well for me was slowing down the tempo of whatever exercise that I was doing. So if I was doing a squat, slow down the tempo to 2 seconds down, pause at the bottom, feel the squeeze in my legs, and then thinking about that, pushing through the floor as I squeezed my leg muscles all the way up. So think about engagement as you're doing your exercises, because not only does it help improve the firing of those muscles, but when you're really focused on that mind to muscle connection, you're actually starting to recruit more muscle fibers in that movement to help make you stronger. So not only will it help make you stronger, but it can also help stimulate more muscle growth. So that's number 1. Number 2, making sure that you're hitting those muscle groups at least multiple times a week. This can be done depending on your split. If you like an upper lower body split, making sure you're doing a couple different leg workouts a week, like at least 2 leg days a week, or incorporating different leg movements and exercises throughout the week. That's another one. Number 3 is nutrition. Is your nutrition stimulated for muscle growth? Generally, if you want to make gains, you need to be in a calorie surplus, meaning that you need to be at least a couple hundred calories a day over your maintenance calories, as well as getting that 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight and doing that consistently. Now, you don't need to be in a calorie surplus for forever, but it helps if you want to get some serious muscle growth to go into a calorie surplus for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. You're gonna have to deal with putting on a little bit of body fat, but then you can always go into a cut after to shed the body fat to show up those muscles a little bit more. So I hope that those help. Now, the first part of your question was you asked about ab muscles. I'm not 100% sure which way you were talking about, if you were wanting more like your ab muscles to show or just how to develop your ab muscles, but your ab muscles are a sheet of muscle that run from underneath your rib cage down to your pubic bone, and they respond to stimulus the same way that any other muscle does. So they respond to different exercises, increasing resistance, adding weight, those types of things. So as well as proper core engagement. A lot of people don't know how to engage their core properly, which was one of the things that I talked about with the squats. So making sure that you know how to engage your core properly. The exercise that I like to do with a lot of my clients to teach that is to lie down on the ground, with your knees bent, and you're going to push your belly button to the ground. So a lot of times it requires you tilting your pelvis to push your belly button to the ground, making your back perfectly flat against the ground. And then you're going to raise your head and your shoulders, and you want to feel that tenseness in your stomach. And sometimes I'll even like make my clients laugh or cough or something like that so they can feel that contraction in the muscles. That is what you want to focus on. So again, with ab muscles, they respond to stimulus the same way as any other muscle does, adding resistance, those types of things, and making sure that you have proper connection and that you're hitting the muscle group a few times a week. Now, if you're wanting your muscles to show more, then it involves going into a bit of a deficit to lose some body fat so that those developed muscles can start to show through. So just depends on what way you want to go and what exactly your goals are. You kind of have to pick one route and stick with it for a little while to see results. Question number 5 is a really good one. Is dairy a legitimate protein source, for example, Greek yogurt or cottage cheese, for adding muscle mass? So I just want to say, very simply, yes, dairy has really good properties for protein. It is a great source of protein, definitely, for especially if you're looking to add muscle mass or even just to have a great snack, those types of things. Dairy is really good. So I'm a big fan of Greek yogurt. I have it all the time. I like it in smoothies. I like it just by itself with some fruit. So yes, definitely dairy is a great source of protein for people. However, though, obviously, if you're lactose intolerant, not such a great protein source, but there's definitely other sources. But a lot of protein shakes, whey protein is made from dairy, as well as casein protein is also made from dairy. For cottage cheese, as well as Greek yogurt, those types of things, there's been studies that people consuming chocolate milk after a workout, it can really help with recovering, things like that, because it helps replenish glycogen storages as well as the added protein into it. So I'm not a big chocolate milk person, but if your calories allow for it and your goals kind of lean towards that way, sure, you can have chocolate milk after a workout, or just a protein shake is also really good. But definitely. There are some sources though that are a little bit more of a fat source versus a protein source. So like cheese, for example, does have some protein in it. Talking about like hard cheeses and things like that, but it is mostly a fat source. However, though, still good. You just have to mind that calories in cheese are pretty high for the small amount that there is in a serving size. So yes, definitely. I recommend for a lot of my clients that eat dairy, that they can absolutely add in Greek yogurt or cottage cheese, those types of things to help increase their protein intake. So yes, go ahead, eat that dairy. And coming from a daughter of a former dairy farmer, I love that you want to support the dairy industry. So thank you. Last question is how to deal with cravings and curbing cravings. So this person reached out to me saying specifically they struggle with wanting to eat candy, as well as like having slushies and pop and things like that since it's summertime. So there's a few different ways. Number one, practice. Practice makes perfect when it comes to dealing with a craving. And this also can, I guess, apply for people who maybe struggle a little bit with eating while they're stressed, that kind of thing. So how to deal with that. So again, practice really can make perfect with these types of things, knowing that you're not always going to be 100% perfect and you can't just swear off foods. So my number one tip would be remove restrictions. If you are going around being like, oh, I can't have that because that's bad, even though you're craving it, it creates that, oh, I want what I can't have. And then your mind's just going to think about it all the time because you're restricting it. So number one, I would remove the restrictions. Don't call them a bad food, those types of things. Number two, a rule that I like to use for myself, because I'm really bad with mindless eating. Like I will go into my cupboard, because I always buy chocolate chips thinking that I'm going to bake or something like that. But 90% of the time when I buy chocolate chips, I don't actually bake them. What I end up doing is eating them handfuls at a time, mindlessly, without even thinking about it. I'll just go to the cupboard, dump a handful in, eat it. And I will do that 4 or 5 times. And that's like a handful of chocolate chips is probably close to 100 calories. Do that 4 or 5 times. That's like an extra 500 calories a day. Not the smartest move ever. However, though, so the first thing is be really mindful of your cravings. You can be aware that they're there, but just notice like, okay, maybe I crave these certain types of food because I'm stressed, or, you know, I just want these types of foods because I haven't had them in a long time. Those kinds of things. So mindfulness is really big in just learning how to deal with the cravings. Number 2, I like to use the 20-minute rule. So what the 20-minute rule is, if I'm craving something, I really want something, or if I'm getting really snacky and I feel like I'm about to go into the cupboard and eat a sleeve of Oreos, I wait 20 minutes. So I set my timer for 20 minutes. I'll go distract myself. I will play with the baby. I'll go outside and do some work. I will have a bath or whatever for 20 minutes. Then once that 20 minutes is over, if I still really want that food, I'll go and have some. So a lot of times though, we crave or snack or those types of things when we're bored. And so the 20-minute rule is helpful because then generally you're keeping yourself busy, you're keeping yourself distracted, you have a glass of water, and that will help deal with the craving. And then it's not that you're saying no for forever. It's just, I'm going to say no for 20 minutes. And if after 20 minutes, I really want that food, then just go ahead and have some. And keep it to be reasonable is the other thing. One other thing that you can do alongside those lines is let yourself have some in, a not restricted, but like a serving size. Let yourself have a serving size. So you can have a handful of chips or a little handful of candy, take the bag and throw it to the back of your cupboard, have some. And then learning, this is again a learned thing, and practice is practicing not going back for more. Just having some, eating it, enjoying it, not feeling guilty about it, and then not going back for more, or use the 20-minute rule before you go back for more. So those are some things, as well as you can, try to, instead of having candy, replace it with fruit, those types of things. Instead of having pop, you can have flavored water or carbonated water. Those types of things can make a big difference. And it's just practice. It really is. Practice makes perfect with those types of things, and knowing that you're not always going to be perfect all the time, and that's okay. So those are all the questions that I was going to answer for today. I feel like this video is going on long enough. I just really wanted to say thank you for sending me your questions and asking me these types of things, because I can guarantee you that if you're wondering these questions, there's other people out there that are also wanting to know the answers to these questions and things. And this is super helpful for me to know how to make content that is geared towards what you want to know and how to help you more in your journey. So thank you so much again. My name is Jackie. If you like this video, I would really appreciate a thumbs up and share it with your friends. You can also hit the subscribe button below to stay up to date with more of my question and answer videos, as well as my other videos like my Cut the Shit series, which you can check out as well. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.